Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking one of the most unbelievable true stories in modern sports. We're talking about a journey that literally defies all the odds, going from the absolute depths of poverty to the very pinnacle of global success. It's an absolute masterclass in resilience and sheer, unadulterated willpower. Let's get right into it.
Okay, let's dive into this, because this stark quote really sets the stage for the whole shebang. The year is 1985. We're in a small, deeply impoverished home in Portugal. A mother, who's already struggling to feed 3 kids and facing imminent financial ruin, finds out that she's pregnant with a 4th. She's desperate. After doctors completely refused to request for termination, she resorted to some extreme measures. She drank warm stout beer and literally ran through the streets until she collapsed, hoping to induce a miscarriage. But despite those frantic efforts, the child survived. And that child, born into a situation where his very existence was a battle before he even took a breath, was Cristiano Ronaldo.
Growing up, his reality was incredibly harsh. Imagine sharing a single cramped room with 3 siblings under a tin roof that leaked heavily every time it rained. Football quickly became his one and only escape from that grinding poverty. But playing on the streets, he earned a pretty specific nickname, the Crybaby. Why? Well, his passion was already bordering on absolute obsession. If he lost the ball or if his teammates didn't perform up to his crazy high standards, he would literally fall to the dirt and weep out of sheer frustration. The fire was absolutely there, it was just entirely untamed.
Which brings us to the unwanted child and a really difficult beginning.
To truly understand the environment that shaped him, you've got to consider the striking contrast between his parents. His father, Dinas, was a profoundly broken man. He'd been forced into military service in Angola, enduring horrific conditions, starvation, malaria, and he returned to Portugal with severe PTSD and zero government support. He ultimately descended into severe alcoholism. On the flip side, you have his mother, Dolores. She became the relentless engine of survival for the family. She spent her days scrubbing houses, taking on these grueling cleaning jobs just to keep her kids from starving.
And this harsh dynamic bled directly into young Ronaldo's early football life. His dad managed to score a low-paying job as a kit man for a local club called Andarina, washing the boots and jerseys of the other kids. For Ronaldo, this meant relentless, cruel bullying from the other players who constantly mocked his father's lowly job. But instead of breaking his spirit, it acted as fuel. To support his full-time football dreams without burdening his struggling family, he and his sister actually took to cleaning the city streets. Think about that. He was willing to do absolutely whatever it took to keep playing.
So, it was time for leaving home and chasing the dream.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the sheer speed of his progression, especially when you juxtapose it with how little he was technically worth at the start. At age 7, he's at that local club, Andarina. By age 10, his talent is just undeniable, and he's transferred to national. But look at the price tag. He was traded for merely 2 sets of team jerseys and 20 footballs. I mean, no way, right? But his skills just kept exploding, and by age 12, after a highly successful trial, he signed with Sporting Lisbon. But this meant a terrifying reality for a kid, leaving his family behind and moving nearly 1,000 kilometers away to a completely unfamiliar city.
That transition was brutally hard. He suffered from debilitating homesickness. We're talking crying into his pillow every single night. And it wasn't just the distance, it was an intense culture shock. The kids in Lisbon, and shockingly, even the teachers, mercilessly mocked his thick Madeira accent and his obvious poverty. One day, a teacher actually told him, "Football will never feed you," basically implying he was destined to stay poor forever. Young Ronaldo's reaction, he picked up a chair and hurled it right at the teacher, getting himself expelled. Reckless? Sure. But it absolutely proved the fierce, unstoppable inner fire he had to protect his dream at all costs.
PC's greatest obstacle wasn't the bullies or the cynical teachers. At age 14, he hit a terrifying crucible moment. He was diagnosed with tachycardia. This is a serious condition where your heart beats dangerously fast, even while resting. The doctors basically told him his football career was officially over before it even began, unless he underwent immediate, incredibly risky laser heart surgery. It was a life-altering choice. But for him, life without football just wasn't life. So he had the surgery, recovered within days, and boom, he was right back out on the pitch.
Now we reach a pivotal turning point, catching Ferguson's eye, and the moment a legend is born.
Picture this. The date is August 7th, 2003. It's a friendly match between Sporting Lisbon and the mighty Manchester United. Now, United was a global powerhouse, filled with absolute superstars. But that night, an 18-year-old skinny kid with frosted tips completely stole the show. He utterly dismantled United's world-class defenders.
His dazzling speed, his unpredictable dribbling, those high-flying headers, he was literally a blur of electricity running circles around some of the most seasoned professionals on the entire planet.
The impact was so massive and so immediate that at halftime and right after the match, the Manchester United players were practically cornering their legendary manager, Sir Alex Ferguson, in the locker room. Center back Rio Ferdinand literally pleaded with him, saying, "Boss, if you don't sign him, it will be the biggest mess." The players essentially refused to get on the team bus to leave the stadium until Ferguson had secured this teenager's signature right then and there.
So the crucial point is, take a step back and consider the magnitude of this number. $12 million. The boy who was traded for 20 footballs just a few years prior, the boy who swept the dirty streets with his sister just to afford gear, was suddenly commanding a $12 million transfer fee. Overnight, this incredible deal made him the richest teenage football player in the entire history of the sport. Arriving at Manchester United, he actually asked for the number 28, his old number, just to kind of avoid the pressure. But Sir Alex Ferguson knew exactly what kind of diamond he had on his hands. He handed the teenager the legendary number 7 shirt. This is a number worn by absolute club icons like George Best, Brian Robson, and David Beckham. The pressure to perform was absolutely immense. But in his debut against Bolton Wanderers, he dazzled the crowd with such fearless, breathtaking skill that the legendary George Best himself went on record declaring it was the most exciting debut he had ever seen.
From there, it was all about forging a legend and walking right through the fire.
In 2005, tragedy struck hard. Ronaldo received the devastating news that his father had passed away from severe liver damage, which was a direct result of those years of alcoholism. It shattered him. His father never got to see him become the undisputed best in the world. And then, just a year later, during the 2006 World Cup, there was an on-pitch incident where he famously winked after his Manchester United teammate Wayne Rooney was sent off. The vicious English media turned entirely against him. Suddenly, this young star was public enemy number 1, universally booed in every single stadium across the country.
Now, most players, they would completely crumble under that level of intense national hatred. Instead, Ronaldo used it as a rocket fuel. He channeled all that profound pain and intense media pressure into an almost terrifying, unstoppable work ethic. He was always the first to arrive at training, already dripping in sweat before the coaches even walked out onto the grass, and he was always the last to leave. And this immense dedication culminated in the 2007-2008 season. We're talking a staggering 42 goals, a Premier League title, a Champions League trophy, and his very first Ballon d'Or, officially recognizing him as the greatest player on the planet. And this brilliantly illustrates the unprecedented heights he had reached, an €80 million world transfer record. In 2009, his childhood dream club, Real Madrid, came calling, and they shattered the world transfer record to bring him to Spain. When he was unveiled at the Santiago Bernabéu Stadium, tens of thousands of ecstatic fans packed the stands just to watch him juggle a ball. He wasn't just a football player anymore, he was a bona fide global phenomenon.
And that sets the stage for his ultimate football legacy during the Real Madrid era.
Take a second to process these numbers because, frankly, they look like a video game glitch. 438 matches played, 451 goals scored. He averaged more than a goal a game for nearly a decade against the best defenders in the world. Add to that 4 Champions League titles and 4 more Ballon d'Or trophies during his incredible time in Madrid. The little crybaby, who grew up under a leaking tin roof in Madeira, who was mocked for his accent and his extreme poverty, systematically willed himself into becoming the all-time top scorer for the biggest football club in the history of the world.
Which leaves us with a final, powerful question.